You know, this whole KOTOR remake situation really does remind me of the Fallout 4 days. For those who don't recall that or weren't around during that stretch, before Fallout 4 was announced, my channel was just dedicated to researching every single little bit of information that added to the growing mystery of whether or not the game actually existed. And whenever there was a piece of evidence, I had people tagging me all over social media about every little happening, every single little happening, right? And over time that faded away because as social media grew, as the channel grew, we became a much more trusted news source. And so people didn't really need to tag me because they knew I would just find it myself, do my research, and present the video to you all as I've done for years, right? But with KOTOR Remake, it's been a really big flashback to me where I'll sign on, there's a little happening, bang, 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 boom, boom, just tons of pings across Discord and Twitter, and I'm honored because people know we've been going through it these last two videos, and every Star Wars story seems to need a trilogy, so hopefully this is the conclusion to our trilogy until we get an official update on what's going on with the KOTOR remake. Now, I'll confront the elephant in the room. I understand what it looks like, 3 videos in a row on the KOTOR remake, little happenings here or there, like, this dude's milking it, bro. I understand how it looks, but y'all know what KOTOR remake means to me. And personally, as a YouTuber who likes to focus on the brighter side of things, as I am typically known for, when I have 2 videos completely dogging the situation and I see a little bit of uplifting news, I feel like it's negligent for me to just ignore all of that and pretend it doesn't exist and just leave the negative coverage there. So I wanted to cover the uplifting part of things here, that the KOTOR remake is still kind of alive. I mean, it's a crazy situation. Like I said, complete roller coaster. So let's not delay any further. If you're new here, you're into KOTOR remake news information. As I've shown, we're covering everything that's happening with this game because now I'm invested in the complete ride here. Now I just got to know if we're going to get to the end of all of this. So this goes to what I would say is the games industry's most trusted leaker in Jason Schreier, right? This guy has a bulletproof track record for the most part. And he had this to say about the rumors that Jeff Grubb was spreading about how PlayStation wants out and that the KOTOR remake is officially dead. He says, "Can't say whether the KOTOR remake will ever actually come out, but yes, 2 people from Saber Interactive tell me they're still on it despite recent rumors that nobody is working on the game. Saber took the project from Aspyr last year, as Bloomberg reported then." Now, naturally, the question has been, what was so bad, and we've talked about this a little bit, what was so bad with the KOTOR remake that Aspyr had the project ripped from them and people were fired over it? And here's what Schreier said in response to that question. The demo wasn't egregiously bad or anything like that. The bigger issue was misalignment between all the parties about scope and how much progress they can make within a given timeline, which I think is important context here because I think the general reception from the audience is if a trusted publisher like PlayStation saw something, I put this in quotes, so bad, as I've said in previous videos, that they wanted out of the game, you know, that sends a pretty big red flag about what they saw there. But now we're learning here it's about scope and what could be accomplished in a given timeline here. And it seems like maybe PlayStation, as the funder, thought we're on the hook for a traditional remake, maybe like a Demon's Souls remake. I don't know how long that took to make, but maybe they thought this would be a 3-year development cycle. Let's follow the blueprint. And maybe Aspyr had completely different plans. I had reported years ago that they were looking at Final Fantasy VII Remake, Neo 2, as well as God of War as a touchstone for their combat, right? That they were going to have multiple stances, which was something that was established in KOTOR 2 and brought into KOTOR 1. Naturally, as you can tell, that's a massive departure from anything you've ever seen in the Knights of the Old Republic series at all. So I don't know if they were going too ambitious, and that would require too much money from PlayStation, and now the project's out of scope. Feature creep is a real thing in game development. It's something that my team and I have to be really conscious about, in that you'd be surprised how quickly you can put things together in game development. But what you never account for is how long it takes to test and iterate and make sure that's refined for a final release. You can make anything, but to actually get it ready for release and completely polished is a whole different beast. And so that is perhaps what Aspyr had crawled into, in that this is a team that was working on a lot of remasters, now taking on their first ever big AAA project, and it is possible they bit off more than they can chew. Just speculation on my behalf. But the more important aspect here is that it's alive according to 2 people. And why this is important to note is beyond the faint pulse the project has, but that the comments that Jeff Grubb made were from one side of the camp, and these comments from Schreier from another side of the camp. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of the internet ready to drag Grubb. Oh, here we go. He was wrong. And I don't mean to get out in front and take the bullet for him, but look, I mean, he's reporting from what seems to be the PlayStation camp. That is exactly what he said in the last video we made on this. He said, my information comes from the PlayStation camp. I don't know what's going on inside Embracer. And so now you have Schreier, who is reporting from the Embracer side of the camp. This is journalism. This is what you want to have, the information from all angles. We now know effectively that PlayStation doesn't want to keep going. We now know through Schreier, based off what they saw, the project is out of scope and that they're not hitting probably the milestones that they should be hitting in development. And so they had to switch to a more, we'll say, veteran development studio in Saber Interactive, who took the project on, who inherited it. And now Saber is putting work into the project. What it may be for, well, I think Jeff Grubb's response to this story is key. He quote tweets Jason and says, "I'm happy to hear this. Like I said, this game is very unlikely to happen without a partner like Sony. And Sony seems to want nothing to do with it now. Maybe someone at Saber gets this together to pitch to someone else." This is another key element of the conversation here because, again, we're getting the complete picture to some degree, at least from the outside looking in. It's not until we get that deep dive Schreier expose that may happen and what's really going on with the KOTOR remake that we'll get a true understanding of the development, the ideas, the pitches, the vision originally, and what's changed. There's a lot of stuff that's still muddied waters completely, but what we're learning here is that possibly Saber could be putting together a new prototype for the KOTOR remake to then bring to another parent company or publisher to get this game funded. And if PlayStation wants out entirely, then that means that maybe they'll rip up the contract, and then it can be a situation of one man's trash is another man's treasure. And this does realistically open up the door for Xbox to step in. I don't mean to beat the drum from the last video, so I'll spare the redundancy, but this is the perfect fit when you think about legacy. And I've seen a lot of the community turn the page on that too. I've gone through Reddit, I've gone through Twitter, I've just seen the conversations in our comment section. Like, a lot of people just suddenly had the light switch flip and go, this has Xbox written all over it. Even people who are like not very invested in the console side of things are like, this has Xbox written all over it. Just this is their MO, to go in and recover a project like this and try to get it to come out. If that is the case though, why I bring all of that up is now if we're thinking about pitching the game again, right? That would mean that idea A didn't work. Let's move to idea B. Let's put together a demo or a vertical slice, whatever it ends up being, a beautiful corner, whatever it ends up being. Let's take that and present it to someone new. Why this is a scary thought is because development would effectively restart to some degree. A new set of timelines and milestones would be set, like, okay, when do we want to hit pre-alpha and alpha and beta and so on and so forth? When do we want to hit all these? All this shifts the entire release cadence back completely, which I think was already a foregone conclusion given that development is at a pretty big pause for the most part. Right now, Schreier, who's again a very trusted insider, only heard from 2 people. And I've seen a lot of people's very like surface level takeaways. Only 2 people are working on it right now. I don't think that was the general vibe here. It's more so Schreier's just saying, like, I talked to 2 people at the studio. Now, what would help is if it was like identifiable of like, is it a project director? Is it like just, you know, some programmer doing upkeep to make sure that the code is never lost? Like, what kind of work is being done? Again, I would love to know. Point being though, is that Bloomberg had originally reported that the release was set for 2025. This was following a delay with what had happened with PlayStation, Aspyr, and Saber. And so now things have been moved back dramatically. I was like, okay, let's cope a little bit. We'll see where it goes. Before that though, the timeline, as I had said, was much earlier. This game was supposed to be out. Hence why with the trailers getting taken down, that's like your biggest explanation right there. Like, this game was supposed to be out. That is legitimate proof. The game was set to be out earlier. With agreements that were made, the game got out of scope. I'm sure delays were issued, and even then it was way out of scope again. Milestones got moved, and PlayStation's like, this isn't gonna come out for another like 3-4 years. So let it be someone else's headache. And that's where I'm curious, who would be willing to take on such a headache? And it goes back to what I said before. I think Xbox's MO is this sort of situation. I think they are a perfect fit, and I would love to see them get involved. Is, again, Saber my first choice? No, but it seems like there's a possibility with this project having a pulse and maybe getting together for another pitch, and that it wasn't bad, it just wasn't what a team wanted, maybe within the scope of the budget. Maybe you represent that and you go, hey, look, we were trying to make this big thing and we wanted 4 years and PlayStation was only giving us 2 to 3. I don't know. I'm speculating at this point, but I don't want to waste any more of your time. That's what's going on right now with KOTOR Remake. We'll see where everything ends up. I imagine this is the end of our trilogy of coverage here for the KOTOR Remake, unless something happens. I mean, who am I kidding? Like, at this rate, something will happen within the next week or so, and we'll be back again. But I don't anticipate much right now. It feels like this is kind of, there's a degree of finality here. So we'll see. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We've been putting out videos like reviewing this here PlayStation Portal. We've put off videos like the Starfield one we're going to do either tomorrow or Friday. We've been putting off a lot of stuff for the KOTOR Remake. You all know how much this means to me. So I appreciate your patience and bearing with me and suffering alongside me. But maybe this is a little glimmer of hope. I don't know. I've kind of just made my peace with the idea that this is going to be a game that we're not going to see, if at all, for a really long while. And so we'll see if we get any updates moving forward, but that's all I got for you, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you're thinking down below. Take excellent care of yourselves. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the heck out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.